Okay, so finally here to wrap up data asset exchange, I want to go over a few important little details here about importing stuff from Max over to the Unity engine. Okay, this is very important. Now, as you saw, I created a folder here for meshes and I imported my stuff here. Off camera, I went ahead and used the same technique I already showed you to import in my meshes. I used the technique that I showed you the second one where you export selected FBX files. But you can use whatever method works for you. Over here, you can see I have, for example, the broken wall object. Okay. Now, this is one thing to note. In Max, when you have a material on your object, if you have a diffuse texture plugged in, it will actually export the texture out. It won't export normal maps and things like that correctly, so it will export the texture in. So it kind of meets you halfway, but leaves you hanging halfway too. So in this case, it brings in the texture. It actually creates a separate folder here, and in that folder, it'll put the texture that belongs to that object, and it neatly names the folder too, so you know that these two belong together, which is pretty good for organizational purposes and stuff. You still have to go in here in the texture import settings and adjust the import settings however you see fit. So for example, here I might want to generate alpha from grayscale, so I would still have to manually go and do that. So it takes care of about half the work for you, but you'll still have to come in and do about half the work yourself. So just keep that in mind. Very important. Also, it's not going to set up materials correctly for you, and I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second. Damaged wall, which is this object here. Damaged wall, so you can see it did bring in the normal map, but it didn't plug it into the material. So that's what I mean by it meets you halfway. It does half the work, but then you have to do the other half. It doesn't like to do everything itself. So it brought in the normal map. I need to set this up as a normal map because it actually doesn't know. So I have to go to the texture type and set this as normal map. And it's going to try to generate from grayscale up here. Turn that off, okay? That's going to mess up the normal map if you don't turn that off. So we have this panel object over here, which we need to bring in a normal map for. So if I go to the materials, you'll see that I have these materials right here. So let's actually start to bring in some of these objects. So let me bring in the damaged wall. I'm going to drag and drop it into my scene here. It's a little bit big, so let me you can make it whatever size you want to make it. I'm going to go something like this. Looks decent enough. Now you can't see the normal map at the moment, which is obviously not good. But we're going to go ahead and fix that. So I'm going to go to the damaged wall object. Actually, let's go get the material for the damaged wall. We can see that there's two damaged wall objects. One is for the rebar, the other is for the actual damaged wall, which is going to be this one right here. And I want to switch this from a diffuse shader to maybe a bump specular would work out pretty good. And the normal map that I want to use is the damaged wall normal map that it actually brought in incorrectly. Which is this one right here. And if we come into our scene here, we can see that the normal map is displayed pretty nicely over here. One thing I like to do is go to my project settings over here in Unity, go to the quality. I like to set my editor quality at fantastic. Of course, this depends on what kind of hardware you're running, so just be aware of that. Alright, so this object here, the damaged wall, looks pretty good. With the normal map, you can see how nice it looks, and if I want to, I can jump into the game here, walk right up to it, and you can see all the normal mapping detail, which looks pretty cool. Pretty nice. Makes this object look a lot nicer than what it looked like without the normal map, obviously. So let me just wrap this up then. I'm going to go to the other materials and fix those as well, because if I go to, for example, the broken wall object, drop this in here, well, first of all, it's going to be a bit too big. So you might want to reduce the size of it. Also, maybe reposition it. You can place this wherever you want, so you don't have to put this exactly where I'm putting it. But the material right now is very bland. Doesn't look that good, as you can see. So let's go to the material for broken wall, and let's change that. Let's make this a bump specular. And right now it doesn't have a normal map. Didn't actually import any normal map in, so we're going to have to fix that ourselves. I'm going to go under texture maps here in this folder, and I'm going to drag and drop stuff in here. So I opened up a Windows Explorer window over here, This directory you see here comes with the tutorial. It's actually in the 3ds Max project folder. If you go to Scene Assets, go to Images, this is where all the texture maps and stuff are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in maps that are not imported yet into Unity. And the maps I'm going to import in are maps like, for example, this normal map over here, the ZBrush panel that we did, and also this normal map. So these 3 normal maps, I'm going to drag and drop them into the texture maps folder. Unity's going to import them automatically, one after the other. It's probably the fastest way to import stuff into Unity whenever you have several objects. The other way is to actually go to the folder, right click, and go to import new asset. But if you do that, you can only import one asset at a time, which kind of stinks. It's too slow, if you ask me. So go to these normal maps, change the import settings. Remember, Unity doesn't know that they're normal maps, so you have to set them as normal maps. So we'll take off the generate from grayscale, which obviously kind of ruins things. So we'll do that. Back to the broken wall object. Let's go back to its material. And we're going to drop in, I believe it's going to be this normal map here. Yep, that's the one. So automatically that makes a very nice improvement. So I think you get the idea. For the panel object, I'll do a bump specular. I'm going to drop the normal map on that. If I look at it in the model preview, you can see what I have. If I drop it into my scene here, I can move this over. It's a little bit big, so I'll reduce the size. Maybe rotate it like this. Place it in the scene right here. You can see how cool the normal map looks. Those normal maps really make a huge difference when it comes to these objects. If I jump in here, have a look at this, that looks just awesome. You can see all the detail from the normal map. That's from the sculpting that we did in ZBrush earlier. So it looks really, really cool. It's really awesome. So go ahead and place the objects, play around with the materials and stuff, and import whatever you need to import in. Get that done, set up the scene, and that'll pretty much do it.